Okay, here we are, Mr. Joe Harley, the man behind the Tone Poets. What a pleasure and an honor to have you here, Joe. Thank you very much for taking the time.
Great to be with you, Michael. Your channel is something I look at very frequently, and not just me, others at Blue Note as well. We're
great to know. Makes me a bit nervous.
We're very familiar with you.
That's great. You know, Joe, when we decided to do this video, I asked you and you agreed that I do an announcement video and give the community the possibility to ask some questions to you. And let's start, because there was one question which also got the most likes. And although I think what we are now talking about won't be a tone poet, in my opinion, for several reasons we can go into. And I just put out the question here. Sava Dimitrov asked, please ask Joe what they plan to do with John Coltrane, Blue Train.
Okay, well, what we plan to do is really something special. And I won't go into just yet. I'll ask for people's patience, which it seems like I ask for a lot, but something very special. It will be a tone poet.
It will be, say that again, it will be a tone poet.
Will be a tone poet.
Great.
Yep. Let's just leave it at something special for hopefully later this year.
Wow. Okay. You really said that. I'm not okay. So that's quite a surprise, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
And that puts me into the starting point of where I, as a vinyl collector, comes in touch with you first, and that was Music Matters Jazz.
Right.
How was it back in the day when you started with the Music Matters Jazz series compared to the market when you started the Tone Poets? It wasn't two worlds, wasn't it?
Well, yes and no. How was it? It was so exciting. It was wonderful. We started, Ron Rombach and I started back in 2007. Ron is a dear friend and remains so. We talk frequently. We spoke last night. And it was exciting, nerve-wracking. You know, it's Blue Note. It's the most amazing catalog in jazz. And so the sense of responsibility to do it right and not screw it up was really on our minds. And every aspect, you know, mastering, packaging, how we promoted everything was we poured over the details. And because the last thing we wanted was to dishonor the brand. And fortunately, I think most people agreed that we honored the brand and provided something pretty special. Now, having said that, one thing that I love about the jazz community and the audiophile community is, because I'm both, I'm a card-carrying member of both. And I love the passion. It's the greatest thing, really.
That's true.
People feel so passionate, you know, forget politics and religion. You get audiophiles and jazz lovers together. Now you've got some real passionate feelings going.
That's for sure.
So you can't, you know, I learned early on, you're not going to please every single person. It's not possible.
No.
So, and if you try to, you're going to get in trouble, in my opinion.
That's your point, yeah.
I'll give you an example. I hear from people, some people say, oh, the jackets are too thick. You know, I don't have room. And they'll write and say something, and they're so passionate about it.
Or the 45 RPM versus the 33 and a third discussion.
Same.
The rhythm of the record, or standing up so often. Same. Yeah.
But by the same token, you get just as many, maybe more people saying, no, don't change it. It's so great the way it is. So it's like that.
And you also have the problem, I think, with the silent happy mass. Most of the people are happy, they enjoy, and they are quiet. They don't write in forums or comments. Oh, there is a certain kind of people, and they are loud, and they say, oh, there was a non-fill on the second side, on the third song, and I will return it. But the problem is, in my opinion, that we talk about in physical media. And so you can't please everyone. It's simply not possible.
It's not possible. What I do love, I love, seriously, all of them. All, because what's the worst thing? What would be the worst thing? The worst thing would be that nobody cares.
Yeah.
Now that would be a real problem.
That would be, but
we don't have that problem.
Yeah. This I can't wait for the upcoming tour. Yeah, I love that too, and this is one of the most, or one of the biggest part that I, for example, do my channel, and probably that you are still in this business and putting out all this beautiful releases. But once more, back to that point, when I consider the fact, for example, those nowadays iconic SRX releases from Music Matters Jazz, and you made a bundle, I think 6 or 7 of those SRX, you can buy them, and they have been there for a couple of months until they were sold out. If you do that nowadays with those records in that quality, in that amount of pressings, I think they would be sold out within minutes, and people would say, why don't you do triple the amount of pressings? And that's what I meant, that this market of high quality audiophile vinyl releases exploded in the last 2.5 years. This is unbelievable, I think.
It is. It is. I seriously, you know, I'll talk to Michael Fremer sometimes about this, and I'll say, did you ever in your wildest dreams, because we've both been vinyl fans, as with so many people, for 30, 40, well, gosh, my whole life, because I started collecting when I was 9 or 10 years old.
Okay.
And, but the truth is, we didn't see this. We didn't think it'd ever go away, but we sure didn't see this thing where all the pressing plants are just slammed. And the biggest problem is getting enough pressings.
I can imagine. I hear that. And also the delivery chain is quite a huge problem. And nowadays, at least here in Germany, maybe in the United States too, even paper is tough to get.
Yeah. For a while, there was a shortage of 28-point board stock, cardboard stock, which we use in the jackets. This goes back to last summer when all these ships were stuck. They couldn't go to port because the ports were clogged up. And so it actually wasn't necessarily the pressing plants last summer. It had more to do with jacket supply. So, you know, it's all tenuous,
Mm.
you know.
What I can imagine, if you are the Music Matters jazz Joe
Yeah.
Harley and nowadays tone poet Joe Harley,
Mhm.
when you talk to Blue Note, is it nowadays with the tone poets that you go into the vault and say, okay, this one, oh, I like, oh yeah, that one, please. Oh, this is a great one. Yes, this one too. Or is there still discussion? Is there a process? How can we imagine how when you put the next batch, let's call it the next batch together,
Yeah,
how can we imagine this process?
it's pretty easy. It's pretty easy. I go on an expedition every night.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is that I've got, you'll see a few, you know, but you've got a million records, but that I've got through the house. People say, how many records do you have? I have no idea. I don't. The idea of counting them, I can't think of something I'd rather not do than count them all.
Why do you have all those records? You can't listen to them all.
You sound like my wife.
Sorry, don't want to interrupt the process, but it just came to mind.
But anyway, so that goes on all the time. And I have a continuous running list, which I've had for, gosh, going back to when we started doing the Music Matters stuff, of, you know, sometimes I listen to something and I'll think, it's good. It's not necessarily, or it's good, but it's clearly got some flaws that I can't ignore. People sometimes forget, the hardcore people know this, but sometimes people forget that these were in an era where these were live to 2-track, or in the early era, live to 1-track recordings. There's no fixing it in the mix. There's no punching in. Rudy is sitting there on the fly while the band is playing, mixing. And so it always amuses me when someone will hear something and someone else says, I can't hear it. And it's, oh, I'll train you. You go to, you know, track 2, 2 minutes and 42 seconds in. And if you listen carefully, you'll hear it. And, you know, people will say, I still don't hear it. Well, your system's not good enough, or this isn't good enough. Do it again, and let's do it until you hear it. And I laugh because I think, gosh, when we're mastering these things, I could make a list of a dozen things on every single recording. And if that's our standard, then we wouldn't put out any of them. You know, so one has to me, it's part of the glory of it, is part of the excitement of it is Rudy, or whoever's engineering, in the case of non-Blue Notes, is like another musician, because they're having to anticipate what's going to happen and mix it as it's going down. Very hard to do. I've been involved in quite a few live to 2-track recordings. You have to really have someone observing to tell you, you know, trumpet solo, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you know to be ready on that fader. I don't know whether Rudy had that or not. Maybe Alfred did that for him, not sure. But there's times on these recordings where somebody comes in hot, and you can literally hear Rudy pull that fader down. And that's on the tape. That's on the tape. And while the fader is up, you might have overload. You know, the mic gets overloaded, or the tape frequently could get overloaded, because tapes in those days did not have the headroom that came some years later with new formulations of tape. So talk about walking a tight wire act. Rudy was really, was very difficult what he did. You just have to, bow down and admire.
That's for sure. Yeah.
He was able to capture.
Yeah, this whole concept of music, but also this whole concept of Blue Note. Not only the musicians, not only Rudy Van Gelder, also the cover design is so iconic up until today. That's astonishing. I have, although it's not Blue Note in the strictest sense, but this cover art alone, I do love that so much. It's simply unbelievable, and I think this is also one important reason why those titles are still so popular. Imagine
the whole aesthetic.
Yeah, the whole aesthetic, and it's so, I don't know the English term, it's so strict and everything puts in together so well. The music, the musicians, the cover art, it's unbelievable. It's such a perfect product, and we are talking 60, 65 years later.
Like
incredible.
Jazz feng shui, it's everything sort of goes together. Yeah, I agree.
Which leads me to another great question. One of the viewers wrote down, and he put out, for example, Katanga, which is so tone poet in the best way, because it was such a huge surprise. To be honest, I've never heard of that title, and then you put it and say, wow, that's so brilliant. And my thought is that if you compare now again Music Matters Jazz and Blue Note tone poets, you have more freedom to choose surprising titles in a way. Is that right? Can you say that?
Yeah.
Can you confirm it?
Yeah. Well, in the sense that the group of labels that I can work with, the umbrella. So Blue Note, you've got Pacific Jazz, World Pacific, United Artists, Solid State, Transition, which we're definitely going to be getting into some of those. Capital.
Okay, you're going into Capital a bit?
Yeah, there'll be,
That's good, because that was one of the questions, by the way. But if you say, oh, that's great. So we can expect more and more of this surprising stuff, and I think that's an important part of the tone poet.
I can virtually guarantee it. If you look at, I can't see if you can see my chair over there. I don't know if that's visible. I have a chair. Well, they're mostly, not every one of them, but they're mostly test pressings.
Okay.
And to give you an idea of how far in front we're having to work to basically keep up with some, excuse me, some semblance of a schedule. I've got, we have the rest of this cycle to finish, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, this cycle ends in August, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's correct. And then sitting over there, I've got a whole nother year, the whole following year, sitting there in test pressings.
Already. Oh, that's cool.
Already
so
done.
Kevin Gray has done his job for the next batch already.
We both, I go to every mastering session, and I'm a very active participant. And yeah, we have done, we've got a whole 24 more sitting over there.
24, okay. You put the list in the video description of the 24 titles?
Now, you know why we don't, people always ask that, and I totally understand. I would do the same. They will get announced. I'm gonna guess, this falls under dear friend of mine who does PR for Blue Note, Jem Kurzman. He also runs the classic program.
Oh, okay.
So this really, I'm gonna guess, usually the announcements come a couple of months before the releases start hitting. And we do, if you announce too early, it becomes just an endless cycle of, hey, when is this coming? When is this coming? When is this?
Why isn't it here? Come on.
Why isn't it here? You said it'd be this month, but now it's a month later. Why? And then in 2 weeks, I go back with Kevin and we start the following cycle. So now we're talking about releases for 2024.
That's great. You know why that's so great? Because now we know you keep them coming. It's not it's not that we okay, it's for the Tone Poet. See you, have been nice. That's so great to know.
There's so many records. There are so many great records. If you could see my working list, which doesn't include any of next year, those are done. There's tons of great stuff.
But which leads me to maybe a problem.
Yeah.
Why am I showing this?
Let me take a wild guess. When is it being repressed?
Exactly. Because I can imagine the more tone poets are out there, and I think we are at 53 right now. I think around 53. If I'm
it depends on how you count the Ornette box. If you count
I count that as one. Exactly. So doesn't it get more difficult to keep the represses coming as you want? Because I've learned from Chad Kassim that it's always a decision. Do I do now the repress of Chet Baker Sings and skip the street date of the next regular Tone Poets 2 weeks? And because this is how it is today.
Yeah. So, represses are tied to, you have to have jackets, because a pressing plant will not press records if there are no jackets sitting there. They don't want records, and you don't want records either, sitting out in the air in the plant for weeks and months. That's not a good thing. So it's really a two-step process of, you need to make sure you have the print materials and the before you can start pressing. But there's been, the repressing goes on all the time. Sometimes it doesn't get announced, and sometimes it's, okay, we have 400 jackets, so we'll press 400 records, and they get released to some distribution. People have said, oh, all of a sudden I saw something, Grant Green's Nigeria or whatever it might be, in the store, and that tells me, okay, they pressed some. But to answer your question about Chet, it's definitely being done. I can't tell you exactly when. In fact, I believe that this would be maybe the second or third time there's been some repressing.
That's my point. Great that you said, because I know that it has been repressed.
Yeah.
But my feeling is that there are so few that the market absorbs them within hours.
That's right.
And only 10% of the people who wants it even hears that it has been repressed. That's how I feel about some of those.
You're right. You're 100% right. It's this pressing capacity. It's not just Blue Note. It's everybody.
Exactly. That's true.
Everybody is dealing with the same thing. Too much demand, not enough supply. Again,
and the main shortage are the jackets. I've heard 6 months. You have to wait, pre-order in a way 6 months ahead for the jacket.
It's both. It was definitely jackets last summer when there was no cardboard to make them. But it's both. It's both.
Okay.
I think the jacket situation is going to improve, and I have confidence long term the pressing situation will improve as well. But that's a ways off. You know, it's a good problem in the sense that, like we were talking about fans.
Yeah.
What would be the worst thing? The worst thing would be nobody buys them and nobody cares. And the plants are sitting there going, bring us your business.
We want to have 10 pieces, no problem. Yeah, sure, of course, right. Of course.
Right.
Of course. And another point, I would love to hear your opinion. Mono and stereo version.
Yeah.
For example, the electric recording company quite often releases the stereo and the mono version.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that we don't see that too much from the classic series or the Tone Poets series. Is that too far out to say now here's the mono and here's the stereo version? Decide or get both.
Well, so here's, okay, that's an involved question. So Rudy, you know, prior to 57, it was all mono.
Mm-hmm.
And when we put those out, of course, they're mono because that's what they are. Sure. For about a year and a half, Rudy ran dual tapes, and I can't even fathom what a pain in the ass this must have been for him. Mm-hmm. He ran parallel mono and stereo, which means you have to, and you've got live sessions. So you're mixing too, and you have to start both the tapes simultaneously. And then in post-production, you have twice the amount of editing because you have to edit both to match each other. Mm. And, but he did that for about a year and a half. Mm-hmm. So there's a period from 57 through about mid 58, where there actually are stereo and mono masters. Mm-hmm. After that, there's only one master, and that's a stereo master. Okay. That's all that exists. That's all that ever existed. And you can see on every tape box, you'll see the same notation. It all says, and I posted some of these, but the note always says Mo master, M-O master, made 50-50 from stereo. Okay. So he would just combine the channels, and there was your mono. Okay. So yeah, we put out in those cases the stereo, and here's the thing. I know some people, you know, really worship, and I've got tons of originals, tons of practically everything. I've got them, but there's two reasons we put out the stereo. One is that often, to me, I prefer it, but my goal is I want to be transported to that studio. I want the illusion that that band is playing in front of me. Mm-hmm. When you see a band play in front of you, you go to a club, mm-hmm. You don't have the trumpet player, the sax player, the piano player, and the bass player and the drummer all lined up in a front to back row. You'd never see that. They're on a stage. And so to me, it's more convincing. I'm more fooled that I'm hearing real players often with the stereo presentation. The mono, I get why people like that. That has more to do with, that's the sound I remember. When I was, when I collected or I bought this rare record, it was mono. And so that's what I remember. And that's what I want. So, and I get that. I understand that. For the vast majority of the Blue Note catalog from 58 onwards, one way to get that is to hit your mono button.
Yeah, but not every equipment has a mono button.
Right, right. Not
Yeah,
every.
but I get your point. Although I do not agree 100% because sometimes this ping pong stereo, this
Mhm,
very, very early stereo,
mhm.
also can be strange when you have them tuck and there.
Well,
Yeah.
so because Rudy was using no baffles
Mhm.
and there's no headphones either, you actually are getting a ton of bleed between right and left.
Mhm.
And you can hear it if the cymbal player, hits something pretty loud, you'll hear it kind of spray over. And so if you mute a channel, you'll hear, oh gosh, I'm on the left side and there's Lee Morgan, but wow, I'm also hearing Hank Mobley and Cedar Walton, and they're just, now I can hear how far away from that they were. They're usually pretty tight.
Mhm.
Um, but this gets really back down to an aesthetic thing of
Sure.
you can't please everybody. So, the way I've gone about it is I please myself.
But
and
sometimes,
that's all I can do.
yeah.
And the other aspect of it is if someone wants the original, which again is great, I've got tons of them.
Mhm.
They are out there now. They're expensive, granted, they're expensive, but it's not like it's impossible. They're there. And as you say, there's a lot of gear that you can just hit the mono button, but there's also gear where you can't.
Mhm.
So it gets to that, how can you please everybody?
How, when I did this same way, Danny Kaye was involved with it. I did a video with Kevin Gray, and one of the most surprising things he said, and that was completely new to me because I thought it would be quite different, was that he said that there is almost no tape degradation, that
He's
the
right.
tapes are in
Mhm.
incredible shape.
Yeah, he is 100% correct. Especially when you go back to Rudy used Scotch 111 a lot in the early days. These are acetate tape formulations. And Michael, that stuff sounds like it was recorded yesterday.
Unbelievable.
It's really, on occasion, and in the Blue Note catalog, there are a few instances,
Mhm.
thankfully not many, but there are a few where either a tape's missing
Are
or
there tapes missing? Okay.
there's sort of one that people talk about a lot. So for you collectors out there,
Mhm.
treasure and cherish your Duke Pearson Sweet Honey Bee, because that tape is gone. And, what exists is a needle drop, meaning someone took it from an LP. But if you have that in its original form, it's up there. I have it, but
You know
treasure.
what happens right now on Discogs when people.
Well, yeah, I didn't think about that. Sorry. Sorry about that.
Well, that's
There's
so that was my next question. So there are titles which you would like to put out as a tone poet, but due to things like that, you can't. Not there.
very few. The only other one I've run into relatively recently, a year and a half ago maybe, I wanted to put out a Grant Green, Sonny Clark record called Oleo.
Mhm.
And it's embarrassing. We get the tape in, and Kevin puts it up, it won't play. When I say it won't play, it won't. There's so much friction and stickiness that it won't even go across the head. It won't. It just won't budge. Now I'm looking in the tape box, and this is the embarrassing part. I see my own note from 2008 saying the same thing. Now that,
Welcome to my world.
oh man, I had totally forgotten. Um, and we baked it, we baked it several times, wouldn't budge, would not play, just won't play. So here's another one. We'll screw up things on Discogs, but if you have, there's a Japanese pressing of Olio, or Michael Kaskuna put it in a Mosaic box from a long time ago. Sonny Clark and Grant Green. Hang on to it, because
yeah, those Mosaic boxes, although I don't have, I wasn't into vinyl at that time, but those Mosaic boxes are also iconic.
Yeah.
Box sets. Know that one?
Sure.
Fantastic. Is that a one-time thing that we have a so-called box set? And why this one as a box set? What was the intention, and how comes round trip Ornette Coleman? Why not Lee Morgan, for example?
Well, Lee Morgan has had the Live at the Lighthouse.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that's a big box set. But why Ornette? So that one, Don and I are huge Ornette fans. Like, we've both been to a zillion Ornette concerts, and so it's something we started talking about 2 years, maybe 2.5 years ago. We started talking about it and what it could be, what it should be. There were some ideas where, would have been a 20 LP box, but that becomes incredibly unwieldy. And then you also have the issue of the plants. And that, you do a box set, you may have noticed Ornette comes out and then you don't see a Tone Poet for 2 months.
Yeah.
Well, there's a reason for that. The box set. So anything is possible, but the box sets do present other logistic issues.
I can imagine, yeah.
But we're really happy with the way that
there are people in the business who says box sets are a pain in the ass. I don't know. I don't say who says that.
Well, making them, is definitely not a pain in the, the creating it and working on it is just a joy. But the logistics of getting them to market, that is kind of a pain.
Can imagine. You're doing such a great job with the Tone Poets. Before that, with the Music Matters, and we are seeing other series. We have the Acoustic Sound series, which is great too. We will see the Contemporary series. We have the Classic series. They all have one thing in common: jazz.
Yeah.
How do you think are the chances that we see something like that in that quality with rock, pop, new wave, folk? Do you think that's possible in nowadays market structure?
Well, Shane Bettner at Intervention is doing exactly what you're talking about.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I would expect you would see more of that sort of thing. I stick in my lane. People come over and think all I do is listen to Hank Mobley or something, but I listen to all kinds of things. I love Bach in the morning, Bach cello suites and things like that. But when it comes to like a level of expertise of knowing the material, knowing the players and all that, I stick with what I know and love. And if I tried to do a rock series, people would find out real quickly yeah, he's just a fan. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He's just like, he's just another fan. So I stick with what I know. Plus, there are so many records. Like people sometimes say, well, when you're going to run out, what happens next? I'm like, guess what? I'm not going to run out.
I can imagine. Yeah. Oops.
You're talking about a lot of records, a lot of great records. You mentioned Katanga.
Yeah.
We've got more surprises.
Yeah.
Along those lines.
Any record you would love to do, but you know, I can't do that because the structure, the market, I can't do that one, but I would love to do it. As you
mean because I don't have access? It's not,
for example, access or whatever. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I love Miles Davis. I've been to so many concerts I couldn't even tell you. But then, you know, Mobile Fidelity has done, you know, the ones that really struck me. This isn't have anything to do with Blue Note, but in this case, Columbia. Those mid 60s, the band with Wayne Shorter, Herbie, and Tony, MoFi did those, and they're night and day better than the originals. I mean, if you haven't heard those, you haven't heard the music. You know, it's stunning. It's really stunning.
Yeah.
So I'm jealous. You know, I wish I'd been.
Okay.
But you can only do so much, you know.
Which leads us to a very, very interesting point, in my opinion, and that's those new vinyl formulations. You already did it with Music Matters Jazz and the SRX, because in my opinion, it's the same super vinyl SRX. I think the formula is quite the same.
Same thing.
Nowadays, Mobile Fidelity Sound Lab announced a huge batch of records, among those a lot of those Miles Davis, which they now put out on this super vinyl.
Yeah,
I know the difficulties, but do you think that we will see someday also this kind of vinyl on the tone poets?
No plans at present. I kind of, well, you never say never, but I kind of doubt it for a couple of reasons. One is it's very costly. The other is it's kind of a pain in the ass to work with. If you talk to anybody at the plants, the yield isn't so good. And consequently, you know, the price ends up being really
different.
Really different.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, you know, it's a different market. It's a different.
You think it's a different market?
Okay. Well, it's a subset of, it's a small subset of a bigger market. And, you know, we have enough issues. Look, most meetings at Blue Note have to do with how can we get more records?
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Press more records or put more titles out? Press more of each title, or
both?
Both.
Well, both. They're linked. They're linked together. You know, we're highly aware that that people want the reissues, the repressings, and they want new stuff. And so it's a juggling act of, you know, trying to get, you know, shove this thing down this skinny pipe that only accepts so much before it chokes. And we're working on solutions. I'll say that. We're working on solutions. So hopefully things get a little bit better. But it does present an issue. We press you know, people ask sometimes, you haven't asked yet, but I bet you will. How many do you make? You know, we don't get into those numbers, but you know, everyone knew that at Music Matters we were doing 2,500. You know, because they were limited editions, 2,500, and you know, I'll say that we do considerably more than that.
I can imagine, yeah.
And we'll leave it at that. But it's.
But you are doing. But I can imagine that you are doing more from Blue Train than from Katanga. They also vary from title to title, or do you put out always the same amount?
You know, in general, they don't.
Okay.
No. In the very beginning, there was, I'll tell you, it's kind of a funny story. In the first 3 releases, there was Wayne Shorter, Chick Corea. So Wayne Shorter, etc., Chick Corea, Now He Sings, Now He Sobs. And the 3rd release was Sam Rivers' Contours. So in the ordering, in the people that decide how many are going to get made, they figured Wayne Shorter and Chick, you know, these will do well. Sam Rivers, how many people know who that is? Well, you know what? They all sold the same.
That's because it's a series. And so many people, when they say it's a series, okay, I want them all. I want that series. I'm collecting the series. When I did my last Tone Poet video, I asked the people, how many Tone Poets do you have? Do you buy them all, or from title to title, or very few? And I'd say I got around 150 answers, and the average was, I'd say, 35 to 40 titles. The average. A lot of say, no, I'm getting them all, some say no, few, but that is quite astonishing. And that is the pressure you put people into when you're doing a series, in a good sense,
Yeah.
And of course, let's take Katanga.
Yeah.
This is a blind buy, but I know it's a Tone Poet. The quality will be good. The jacket will be beautiful, and it can't be that bad. You know, and so
I was excited about that. It's a record I've loved my whole life. I think I got it. I think the copy I have is probably from the early 60s. And it's been on my mind for years, just hadn't done it yet. And but I remember when we were mastering it, I said to Kevin, people are going to listen to this and go, who are these guys? You know, and a lot of them did. They were like, how come I never heard of Curtis Amy and and Dupree Bolton?
But briefly back to the numbers, if you allow.
Yeah.
But there is probably a big difference between the numbers of the first 3 and the 2 that comes out tomorrow. You press nowadays, you press much more, don't you?
Yeah. It was a learning experience the first year. They kept upping it and repressing it, and then it kind of dawned on those involved that, you know, we just need to order a lot more. And they do, but even then you see what happens. So it's pretty remarkable. I should mention, since we got it, so you asked me about Blue Train, I better mention, because that'll start a bunch of people saying, oh, well, he's going to do all the ones he did at Music Matters. No, this is it'll be more understood when people see it, but no, this is an exception. This is an exception. I don't do the ones that we did before for a couple of reasons. Well, one very good reason is Jem Kurzman, as I mentioned before, does the classic series, and he's covering a lot of those, and they're done beautifully. Hi, Ella. It's my dog, Ella Fitzgerald.
You have a dog, okay.
Yeah,
I have them too. Mine are upstairs with my wife. Otherwise, they would be all around the place. Yeah, now that you mentioned the classic series, I think that the classic series, due to the different pressing plant here in Germany, Optimal, they had quite a learning curve. Let's put it. I think they got better a couple of months ago, but at the beginning, they had some quality control problems. I think.
I think a lot of things have been, you know, when you have a relationship with a pressing plant, a lot of it is dialogue. And I mean, I've worked with RTI for years and years. I mean, this goes back to when we had AudioQuest Music as a label. So a lot of things they know I'm incredibly picky about. I don't even have to mention anymore. They got so sick of me talking about on center records, because that just, they know it's like a real stickling point with me, that we don't have to even talk about it. They know. It's like, oh, it's one of Joe's. We better really get this straight.
Yeah, that's of course was, I can imagine, so helpful that you brought all this experience from Music Matters Jazz into the Tone Poets. That for sure helped a lot to not making mistakes again. Probably, I can imagine you learn stuff and you have experience.
Yeah, learn about the process too.
Yeah.
So I QC as of about 8, 9, 10, maybe a year ago, I'm QCing the classic series as well. And I was on last night with Jem. You know, we were going over a batch of titles that came in, and you know, I heard something on one and he heard it in the same spot, and so that gets communicated. And you know, it's a matter of checking the mothers, checking the stampers, and making the corrections. And so that same dialogue is happening with and has been happening with Optimal. To your point.
Another great question from the announcement video, and because that is also something we can discuss here. I think it comes from Roman Rabier, and he asked the following: while this is not Tone Poet or classic series related, perhaps Joe Harley can explain why Blue Note chose to release the Norah Jones 20th anniversary edition of Come Away With Me without an all analog treatment like the Tone Poets, especially now that they are going out of print at analog production. Curious what goes behind some of these decisions that are on the surface don't seem to make much sense. I think it's a great question because it's a legit
That's a very simple answer too.
Yeah.
Yeah. What makes them think they're not analog?
I don't know. They don't say. Are they?
They are.
They are.
So the original album release in that package is all analog.
Okay.
It's all analog. I'm not 100% sure on the extras. Some of those may not be, wouldn't surprise me if the tape doesn't exist, or I'm not totally sure, but I know 100% the album Come Away With Me, as you know, the original that's in that set is all analog.
Okay.
Yeah.
That raises for me the questions: has there any discussion that this should be a Tone Poet? Could have been.
It wouldn't really be practical because of logistics. You know, RTI is slammed as it is. This just wouldn't be feasible. I mean, I suppose it could be done if you didn't want to see tone poets for 6 months.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a logistic issue of just supply,
Yeah.
getting it done.
Okay, maybe final question. What was the last record you bought?
That I bought?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man, I'm getting records all the time. You're talking about non-necessarily just for pleasure.
Not a tone poet, not a tone poet test pressing. I'm not talking
right,
about
right. That doesn't count. I think I've got one of the recent ones, highly recommended too. It's Pat Metheny Side Eye.
Oh, cool. Okay.
This is it's a 2-record set. It's live. It's a trio, and it's really good. It's you'll be surprised. It's really well. Pat Metheny is great, so I shouldn't say you'll be surprised. Alec, you're jumping on that. There we go. But it's just a trio. You know, it's keyboards. In some ways, it's like a great organ trio. It's got that vibe. You know, the keyboard player is playing the bass and is playing B3 or something that sounds like a B3 on a fair amount, and drums and Pat. And yeah, don't delay.
Okay, yeah. Buy now or cry later.
Yeah.
Joe, what did I forget to ask you? Is there anything I should have asked and I didn't ask? Because I'm not a professional, so help me out.
I think you are a professional. You've had your 45 RPM thing going here for a while, and it's
almost 2 years now. Yes.
Yeah, it's really great.
Thank you.
And you have content every few days. It seems like.
I around 3 videos per week. Yeah, but the content comes from you. I just say, look, that's great. I'm not doing that much more.
Let me think. Oh, well, you know, I'm just going by questions that I get. This sort of gets back to the passion, but I'll see things from people. Why do you like this artist and this artist so much, and yet you ignore, you know, you refuse to do these, and it has nothing to do with that. You have to, people have to, they're going to see lots and lots of everybody, but we can't put them all out at the same time.
Sure.
And so sometimes people interpret that as you're ignoring so-and-so. It's like, how do you know? Might be my favorite artist. Just you haven't seen it yet. That's all. So that comes up. Trying to think what else.
But that leads me to a question I would like to ask. Are there sometimes, or has there been a title, or will there be a title where you say, oh, goddamn, that's risky, but come on, we do it. Come on, we do it.
Yeah, well, Ornette is, you know, that,
I get that.
We're highly aware that Ornette's not for everybody. When I was putting that project together, I was listening to nothing but Ornette for many weeks.
Okay.
Because Ornette's sort of like his own universe. And you kind of acclimatize. And, you know, you go down the Ornette rabbit hole, I call it. And I was down there for many weeks listening to nothing but Ornette as we were putting this, determining what would this box be. My wife, after 7 weeks or so, said, can we like just for one night put on something else?
Oh, your wife is really, really nice. My wife would have said, Michael, let's talk about the divorce.
An Ornette divorce. But you know what's interesting? So we're aware of that. I mean, Ornette's music is polarizing, always has been, always will be. I love it. Don loves it. And the Ornette freaks love it. And the box has done, well, the box is gone. It's in distribution.
This was limited, wasn't it? This was the first limited to, or will there be a repress? Because initially I've read limited edition, and I was surprised because I thought, oh, tone poets aren't limited. But with this one, I think in the first announcement, limited edition.
You know, I guess so. For the reason that box sets, you know, are just so crazy to get produced. But yeah, in terms of our warehouses, it's gone. It's all into distribution. Doesn't mean you can go down to your record store and it might not be there.
Sure.
But we don't have any more.
Yeah, that was, if you put it now in this slide, very interesting. It was a cool, smart and great move to make an Ornette Coleman box set and not a grand green one. Yeah, I get that. Yeah. What's with Jimmy Smith, by the way? You're always so shy on Jimmy Smith.
Well, I did
all the three sounds.
I did a Jimmy Smith record. Crap, what's it called? I was going to say Preaching, but it's see, I should know this because I did it, but we did. There's a tone poet, Jimmy Smith. It's with Stanley Turrentine. I can see the cover. I'm spacing.
Yeah, but Joe, I think he put out.
Well, and then Gem in the classic series has one or two out, and there's more coming.
Check and
yeah, there you'll be seeing again. This gets down to, you know, why do you hate Jimmy Smith?
No, not at all.
I know.
There are probably or the three sounds.
Three sounds. You know, I wouldn't surprise me. We did three sounds at Music Matters. We did the one Blue Hour. Fabulous record.
Really hard to get. Yeah.
And it wouldn't surprise me at all if you wouldn't see that in the classic series. I don't repeat things.
I get that, yeah.
With this one exception, and people really do need to understand. They'll understand when they see what it is. It's an exception. The Blue Train is an exception.
Me, as a collector of especially Music Matters jazz, of course, loves to hear that you don't go into. but of course,
you know,
it's how can I put it?
Yeah.
Some people love it, a lot of people won't love it, of course. Yeah. But what we have, the classic series, and there we have those horses moaning and this.
You'll see lots of those in the classic series, all done by Kevin Gray. The only thing that's different is, you know, the plating is in pressing. So plating is optimal and pressing is optimal.
There's one huge difference.
What's that? Oh, the jackets.
Yeah. Big discussion, always a big discussion. And the price, of course. And
the price, yeah. They're linked, aren't they?
Somehow.
Yeah. They are linked. But there's so many. You know, the other reason I haven't repeated those is that once you go down that road, what about the 200 great records that are waiting to be done that I'll be doing? I put those on hold. You know, there's so much more. I think when people look back in 5 years or 10 years, it'll make more sense. They'll see, that's why, because we didn't know all these other great records were coming out at that time until they came out.
Yeah, can't wait. And I'll get them all.
Here's a little troublemaker.
Oh my God. Hey, how are you?
Ella Fitzgerald.
Ella Fitzgerald.
Why are you making so much noise?
Yeah, the dogs, very special.
She
Very
loves, well, we've had dogs forever and they've all loved music, or they like how we look and feel when we're listening. You know, they know it's like, oh, this is a nice time. And she grabs her ball and, you know, music's being played. I'm enjoying, you know.
Yeah, so yeah, same here. Also, when I do a video, I do it in a different location usually. I put on the camera and Friedrich and Karl comes, lays on the sofa. Okay, he's doing a video.
Yeah, yeah. They know us.
Best friends, best
That's
friends.
right. That's right. She even likes Ornette.
Even Ornette, okay.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Friedrich and Karl are most into classical, by the way.
Mm, mm. Well, she likes Bach too, so that's a pretty widespread.
Yeah.
Bach to Ornette.
Bach has everything in it, I think.
Mm,
Even Ornette Coleman, even
I agree.
little Ornette Coleman. Yeah.
I agree.
In that sense, Joe Harley, what a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Michael.
Thank you
Same.
so much. I hope we can do that again.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You be well.
I will.